Thank you. Well, I'm really pleased to be here tonight and really pleased to see so many people interested in my book. So, I've been on a book tour this week. I started on Monday, and I get the same two questions every time, so I thought I would tell you what they were. The first one is, how did you get involved in mental health? And the second one is, why did you write the book? So I'm going to tell you why I got involved in mental health. I was campaigning for Jimmy Carter. You can't hear me? I was campaigning, well, that does make a difference. I was campaigning, I'm telling you how I got involved with mental health issues. I was campaigning for Jimmy when he ran for governor the first time, and he lost the first time. We got in late. Our leading Democratic candidate dropped out and left Lester Maddox, who was a big segregationist. And this was 66, a long time ago. I'm pretty aged. And so nobody would run against him. He was very popular, so Jimmy said, we can't just let him have it. So he got in, and we didn't have long to campaign. And I never had campaigned, but I got in the car and just drove from one town to the next. And passed out brochures and went on to the next town. A very disorganized campaign. But 1963, the Community Mental Health Centers Act was passed, and this was 66. And they were beginning to move people out of our Central State Hospital, big institution, overcrowded, terrible conditions, into the community, but there were no community mental health centers yet. And I had so many people ask me, what will your husband do with our loved one at Central State if he's elected governor? So people kept saying that, and one day I was standing at the gate of a factory in Atlanta, Georgia at 4:30 in the morning for the shift change. That's a really good place to be because a whole bunch of people coming in and a lot coming out and passing out brochures. And this woman came out, and she was really small, elderly, had lint all over. And I said, I hope, and weary. You could tell how tired she was from working all night. I said, I hope when you get home you can get some sleep. And she said, well, I hope so too, but we have a mentally ill daughter and we struggle to pay for her care. And my husband stays with her at night while I work, and I stay with him in the daytime while he works. And that haunted me. What was she going to find when she got home? I worried all day about whether or not the son or daughter, she didn't say which, was awake when she got home. I was thinking about whether she got any sleep or not. So that same day I was riding around, I came to a town that Jimmy was going to be in that night. I told you it was a disorganized campaign. And so I stayed. I got in the back of the room, and he didn't know I was there. And there was a big rally because it was close to the election. And so I got in the back of the room, and he was shaking hands. People were coming up shaking his hand. And I don't know about whether you stand in receiving lines, but it's part of my life. And you would be talking to somebody like this and reach for the next hand before you say, he did that. He had my hand. And when I got in front of him, he said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm want to know what you're going to do when you're governor for people with mental illness. And he said, we're going to have the best program in the country, and I'm going to put you in charge of it. Well, he didn't put me in charge of it because I didn't know anything about it. But when he was elected governor 4 years later, he was in office only about not even a month before he established the Governor's Commission to improve service to mentally and emotionally handicapped. And I worked on that for 4 years. And we actually put community mental health centers in 123 communities, but they were not comprehensive. Some of them, most of them were, well, maybe not most of them, but some of them were offices in the center of town where people could go to find out where to get help. But I was really proud of it when I left Georgia. And then when I campaigned, because it had, for president, because it had in my bio that I was interested in, worked on mental health issues, everywhere I went in the country, and I campaigned for a year. I was on all 2 states. And everywhere I went, if the people had a mental health center, they wanted me to see it. If it was good, they wanted to show it off, and there were very few. And if it was bad, they wanted me to help them when Jimmy was president. And so I just developed this real responsibility, because when you get, and back then, people were still putting them in institutions, and nobody wanted to talk about it, even talk about mental illness. When Jimmy was governor, somebody heard me at that meeting that night, and I always say that all the advocates in Atlanta descended on me, all 5 of them. And that's what it was, 5 people. And then when while he was governor, and I would have a meeting, it was a long time before we could get many people to come, and we never did get really build up a really big advocacy. But my 5 advocates were always there, and for a good while, just a few government employees, just because my husband was governor. But nobody wanted to talk about the issue. So it's been a very long time since I got involved. I had a governor's commission, a president's commission, and now I have a really good program at the Carter Center in Atlanta. We live in Plains, Georgia. It's about a 2.5-hour drive south, but we spend 1 week a month that we schedule a year ahead of time to be at the Carter Center. And then we travel with our projects, and I don't get home as much as I would like to. But anyway, that's how I got involved. I actually got the Mental Health Systems Act of 1980 passed. We worked hard. Got it passed in October of 1980. In November of 1980, a new president was elected, and my mental health, the whole legislation was abandoned. No, we had even passed the legislation and funded it. And it was not perfect, but it would have made a considerable difference. It was one of the biggest appointments of my life. Well, that's how I got started. The other question was, why did you write the book? Well, when you heard how I got started in the situation then, and moving out of the institutions with nowhere to go, and now I've worked all this time, I think help for mental illness goes in cycles. Patrick Kennedy, I heard him this morning, he was talking about it goes in cycles. You'll have somebody in it that's interested and it'll do pretty good, and then maybe the next president doesn't care about it, and so nothing happens and you drift along for a while. Well, Jimmy did great, added great funding to research. And then it's drifted a while, and then when President Bush, the first President Bush, came into office, it was the decade of the brain, and he really added to the research. Well, today we have learned so much. We have, from research, we have new treatments, new medications. We now know that people can recover. And the reason I wrote this book is because we spend $120 billion a year on direct health care. Our country does. That does not count supportive housing, supportive employment, anything else, just direct mental health care. And millions are still suffering. And I am so distressed about it. I am angry about it, because to know that people can recover and not have a system that works, it just hurts me. So I wrote the book because I want people to know what I know, so we can get over the stigma which holds back everything we try to do, and go on to do what's good and right for people with mental illnesses. So my book focuses on 4 major themes. Recovery. Today, as I just said, people, and it distresses me so much, because people can recover from mental illnesses. And our mental health system is already beginning to happen. We're going to have to shift away from controlling a mental illness. And I have so many people who will tell me about their problems. And one young man was an artist, and he dreamed of being a great artist, and he was a teenager. And, well, I think he was a junior in college, and he went to the doctor, and talked to the doctor and told him thought he was going to be a great artist, and he hoped he could get well soon, and the doctor said, "You'll never do that." Well, see, I think that's what happened in the past. We just said that this is it, and it's going to be for your life. So We're now having to shift from the negative